We're live.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Kind of Funny's Kevin Smith's View Askewniverse in review. That's right, we are ranking and reviewing every movie in Kevin Smith's View Askewniverse. I'm Tim Gettys, joined by one of the coolest dudes in video games, Greg Miller.
Andy's so fucking high.
We got hot boy Andy Cortez over here.
Kevin just switched over to his view, and he was across all 5 frames, like just one giant photo.
I didn't realize the mouse
All
was on
5
the
frames
other
himself,
side.
Kevin Coelho,
What's up, guys?
and Nick Scarpino. How you doing?
I want to
man?
point out, I'm good, guys. I want to point out it probably took us longer to figure out how to make all of our shots black and white than this episode's going to be.
That's my favorite thing.
And I would say,
even
real quick, we loosely figured it out. We're clearly not in black and white. So much color on
No,
Nick.
looking at my image, mine has a little bit of red in it. Kevin's is a little blue. Yours, Andy's, and Tim's just looks red too. But that's just because there's no amount of black and white desaturation you could do to make Tim's
Can't
face
turn
less
this
red.
down.
The blonde
Yeah.
hair
It's
also.
impossible. I hate you all.
Tim
Hate you all
Possible.
so
Looks
much.
like a match on fire.
We do this show live every Tuesday on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames, where once a week we will be reviewing one of the Kevin Smith movies. Every Friday, we do the Transformers movies. It's exciting for everybody. You can watch live on Twitch. You can watch later on youtube.com/kindoffunny or roosterteeth.com. You can also listen to this as your on your favorite podcast service. Just search for Kinda Funny Reviews. If you want to get the show ad-free, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunny, just like our Patreon producers, Mohammed, Justin Toft, Das Bear Jew, and Black Jack Did. We appreciate all of them very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg, how are you feeling before we even get into this? This seems like something you wanted for a very
It was a
long
dream
time.
come true, Tim, to get to watch
Yeah.
all the Kevin Smith films together here, share them together. Me and Kevin talking about Kevin Smith for so long, actually getting to watch them now, discuss them week in, week out with all of you. And plus, just a trip down memory lane, right? I can't remember the last time I watched most of these movies, let alone watch them all back to back to back to back. That had to be like in high school, when I actually had like a marathon and watched them regularly in terms of chronological order and all that. So to go back to Clerks, for the first time forever, because obviously I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I think so much of what I think podcasts are based on the commentaries that came on the DVDs for Mallrats and for his movies and stuff like that. So it's a weird trip to come back. I tweeted about this over the weekend, right? Of watching Clerks again right before my birthday, and then getting ready to make content for my YouTube channel. It's it's just a whole full circle thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, before we get into all the nuts and bolts of this, just going around the panel here of what our history is with these movies, I've seen most of them once. I think there's a couple. I've never seen Mallrats, never seen Chasing Amy. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to get through all this stuff. And yeah, I've only seen the rest of them once.
Holy.
So, and I haven't seen Reboot. So I think there's like half of them I haven't seen. So I'm pretty
Pretty much brand
excited
new to
to go through this. Nick, what about you?
And I've seen all the Kevin Smith movies. I think the ones I've seen the least are probably Dogma, Clerks 2, Chasing Amy. I've seen a few times actually. I think I've seen probably Clerks and Chasing Amy and Mallrats the most. And I think I went back and watched Mallrats, Chasing Amy last year, just to see kind of how it aged. And man, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of goatees. There was an egregious amount of goatees in the 90s. We'll just say that. But other than that, these movies hold such a special place for especially people like me who went to film school and wanted to be filmmakers. Obviously, Kevin Smith was a huge reason why that happened. Seeing a success story like him or Rob Rodriguez or Linklater, those guys that went out and just figured out how to get, scrape together $22,000, $30,000, $27,000 and make some. I think in Robert Rodriguez's case, it was like $10,000 that he did. But they went out and they had a vision and they worked with what they had, and it really made something special. And I think that's why, when you look at Clerks, it's not a good movie. Like the acting is terrible. It's all done in basically 2 shots, like Kevin Smith's like classic 2-shot format, which is that they only had enough film stock for 2 takes, and they didn't have enough for coverage. So he was like, I'll just film everyone like this is the shot because the guys can stand behind the counter. I can get 2 of them in. That'll be my shot forever. But this movie is like a rare example of it being so much greater than the sum of its parts, because it manages to capture sort of the zeitgeist of what was happening in the early 90s. And specifically, so much of Kevin's story builds into it that you can't really separate the 2 of them. Yeah. And just rewatching it again 2 nights ago, there's just something intangibly fun about this movie, Because again, if we put all of our friends together, granted we have some pretty talented friends, but if I just drew from like, if I got Stu, you got Poe, and you got Curran, and Kevin brought his dog, and we all just came in with actors,
You
and
can't
I wrote
name
some
one of my
dialogue for them.
friends. Not one.
I mean, you have
And Andy
Tim.
just doesn't exist in this. I'm just saying.
Well, we
You've
all know
met my
Andy
friends.
Andy hasn't left his room in 2 months. I'm not quite sure anyone knows he exists anymore.
No.
But the point is, like, if I was to do this, I don't know that we would get the same outcome from it. But Kevin Smith had just such a clarity of vision for what he wanted to do with this that it really, really shows. And I think that speaks to how smart he is and just how creative he is, and his desire to make something out of nothing. It really is what this whole movie is about to me. It's about someone who's kind of lost and doesn't understand where he's supposed to be in life, and like trying to just get something. He's not even supposed to be there today. It becomes the phrase that he says over and over and over again, kind of mirroring, I think, a little bit of the creative process for Kevin of being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He didn't even know he wanted to be a filmmaker until a little bit later in life. So.
Well, I mean, it operates as such a time capsule too, both for the '90s, obviously, with Dante's like combat boots and these oversized pants and all this other shit.
Love it. And
But
again, the goatee.
And the goatee, of
egregious
course. The
goatee.
shoulder
Nick, you
pads.
had that goatee in that band photo of yours as well.
Dude, the
You rocked
90s,
the goatee. Yeah.
a lot of people had
Yeah, I
had
do.
soul patches. A lot of people had whatever the bottom goatee was, and a lot of people had the full goatee. I don't know why I had that. I think my brother had it, and looking back on it, it's just scummy.
It's
little
Soundgarden,
scummy.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin,
But
what
it's a
about
time
you?
capsule. Oh, sorry.
I don't remember when we first watched Clerks, but the first time, I think, was Clerks the first movie we saw, or was Strike Back, and then we went backwards?
Jesus.
And it was one of those things where it's like I discovered this world of like, oh my god, Kevin Smith is a genius. I was obsessed with him for so long, and I remember when when you guys were like, oh, we're gonna leave IGN, branch out, and become Kind of Funny. We're gonna do an interview with Kevin Smith, and I was like, I don't care what happens, I have to go. That was such a big deal. But yeah, I mean, I love these
Wasn't
movies.
invited. You still showed up.
We made
I
Kevin
drove
drive.
him a big
Kevin
chunk
had
of
to
it.
drive.
I drove until it was dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah. It was
But
pretty
yeah, I love these movies so much. It's so weird to see like a movie so well capture like my day to day. Like watching it when I was young, it was like, holy shit, these are the conversations that me and Tim have. Like we're sitting there talking about Star Wars or Back to the Future, and it's like that's what this movie's about. Those conversations and those interactions, and then it goes a little bit deeper, just deep enough to like be phenomenal. Oh.
Andy.
Andy the color.
It's like Clerks 2.
Clerks 2 moment.
No
Anywho,
future spoilers.
uh,
No
yeah.
future spoilers.
So I just love these movies so much. I watch them all the time, like all the time. So I'm very excited to do this in review.
Andy, what about you? What's your history with Kevin Smith movies?
The Kevin Smith movies were always the movies that my friends' older brothers were really into. Like it was kind of the cool movie franchise that if you thought yourself to be, an intellectual, you were into Kevin Smith movies. That and like, I remember nonstop them talking about Clerks, Mallrats, and Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs. Like that was like, oh man, my friends' older brothers are really cool because they're into these really art movies. I don't really have any much more experience other than that. Like I recognize a lot of the references. This is my first time watching it all the way through, and I liked it. I feel like I would have loved it had I been 13, 14, 15, had I been in that era. Because it's one of those movies where it does remind you of watching your friends trying to make a project. It reminds me of high school or community college theater. Like it's two actors on stage and they are just going through a long shot and they have to memorize a lot of lines. And it reminds me of theater, honestly. And yeah, I dug it. I thought it was but not a lot of the conversations were fun and stuff. And yeah, I think it was really cool.
But not like good theater, right? Like community theater, like the kind of theater where people are like, I'm also an insurance salesman.
But it's charming because you see how you see that this is what they had. Like they had
Oh,
no
yeah.
more than what you saw in terms of resources, in terms of friends that could be on camera.
Yeah.
Like they just grabbed anything and everything, and it's
Walt
so
Flanagan's like 7 characters.
yeah. It's like you have such a level of respect because like this is what started all of it. Oh, there you go, Tim.
Well, fuck.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I went back and watched. There's a documentary I think called The Snowball Effect. It's on YouTube if you guys want to check it out. But I watched that last night, and it's obviously Kevin Smith talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm not probably telling you guys anything new. But he cast everything from the people he had. He went out and did a casting call and found some local actors as well, which is where the Dante actor came from, as well as both of the girlfriends. And it's just fascinating because they have their audition footage on there. And he was like, and the girl that plays Veronica, I think that's her name, right? Dante's like current girlfriend.
Yep.
Not a great actor. But they were like, we were blown away in her audition because she could cry. We were like, we didn't know someone could do that. It's like, he has so little experience with actors that he was like, you can cry, you're hired. That's it.
Wait, and then he doesn't have her cry.
No, but I mean, he said she could, the point was that he saw her
she's
actually be able to have range of emotion. Well, she's not an actor, but she was able to do that. And so they were blown away by that. But instead of actually trying to find people that could hold the scenes, but then, the guy that plays Walt Flanagan is obviously one of his friends that I think is on Comic Book Man with him, right? And that guy, the reason he played 4 roles was because the other actors that he cast just didn't show up. Like he was like, a lot of people had to play multiple roles because we cast people, and they weren't really getting paid, so they just didn't show up.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Fuck, dude, put a hoodie on. You're in the scene."
Yeah.
Same with that last line of I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to get into the stuff here. So Clerks released October 19th, 1994, directed by Kevin Smith, an American filmmaker, actor, comedian, public speaker, comic book writer, blah, 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 and podcaster. He came to prominence with the low-budget comedy film Clerks in 1994, which he wrote, directed, co-produced, and acted in as the character Silent Bob of the stoner duo Jay and Silent Bob. They also appear in the later films that we'll be doing in this order: Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks 2, and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. So those are all the movies that we are going to be doing in this. They're primarily set in his home state of New Jersey, and while not strictly sequential, the films have crossover plot elements and stuff to look out for, known lovingly as the Askewniverse, based on his production company, Askew Productions, with the most obnoxious long intro that I've
so
ever seen.
long, and it's so gross.
It's so
That was the
disturbing.
90s, Nick. You don't remember, all right?
Oh, I remember, bro.
You don't
I
remember.
was a solid 24 years old in the 90s, so
a
Another
budget
quick
of
thing.
$27,575. Clerks was shot in the convenience and video store where director Kevin Smith worked in real life. Upon its theatrical release, the film received generally positive reviews and grossed over $3 million in theaters, launching Smith's career. The film is considered a landmark in independent filmmaking, and in 2019 was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress, who deemed it culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. To acquire funds for the film, Kevin Smith sold a large portion of his extensive comic book collection. He maxed out 8 to 10 credit cards with $2,000 limits, and he dipped into a portion of funds set aside for his college education. He also spent insurance money awarded for a car Jason Mewes and he lost in a flood. The film was shot in 21 days with 2 pickup days, and yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about that stuff. But
yeah, another fun note is that they actually edited the movie in the video store.
oh really?
So yeah, they brought in the flatbed editor, the Steinbeck, I think is what they call it, and they put it right next to the cash register because they had no place else to edit because Kevin Smith's basement and house had been destroyed in the flood. And so he and Scott Mosier they synced the sound, and they basically slept in the video store. But it was literally while they were editing, while people were coming in looking for videos. So they had to
Awesome.
they were looking at it on the flatbed, and it's just a really cool concept. I mean,
Yeah, so some more stuff there is it's filmed at the same place where he worked. At the time, he was only allowed to film outside of business hours, and because it was bright enough, lights couldn't be afforded. The plot included an explanation for the shutters being always down. So that's interesting. And then the film's shoestring budget is part of the reason it was shot in black and white. A number of different types of lighting were used, and the white balance was super off. So they were like, fuck it, it's just black and white. We're going to deal with it. But the one thing that I thought was interesting is, so the budget is $27,575, but the post-production budget was $230K.
$230K. I think that might be what he made when he sold the movie.
No,
Or it's actually possible because I think once Miramax bought it, I think they bought all those songs and put a soundtrack together. So that might be where some of that money came from, because he
Gotcha.
didn't have money for because there's actually like real songs in this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Soul Asylum plays on
Yes,
that album.
he didn't have the rights. He didn't put that in the
that
original.
must have been it then.
Yeah,
Because box
Soul
office at
Asylum.
3.2 million, runtime of an hour 32 minutes.
Man, it's great too. I miss fucking 90-minute movies, man. 90-minute movies, just get in, get out. Why is everything
felt long,
2 hours
honestly.
and 30
What?
minutes?
Really?
This felt like 2 hours plus to me.
Oh my
Like
man.
Nick said it earlier about like this movie is like it's better than some of its parts. Like I totally agree with that. Where there's so much of this, I'm like, obviously it doesn't age well. I'm not even going to get into all that stuff. We know it's like this movie is just so creative and fun that it's like you look past all the bullshit in a way, and I wonder if it's just because we want to. But something
No,
for me is the
I don't
acting
think
is
so.
so bad. Like the acting that throughout the whole movie is horrible. But then there's moments where it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And I feel like those mean more than the bad moments. Like there's that one shot where it's Dante and not Veronica, the other girl, Caitlin talking, and it's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes of them just going back and forth talking. It's like that to me is so impressive. I guess that the movie sets me up to be like, wow, they can't act. So that when they do, you're like, holy shit. Like good for you guys. Like it kind of it's the underdog story, you know?
It's interesting because I feel like she was pretty decent. Caitlin was decent as an actor. She carried a scene, and I think Randall is to me the best part of this whole movie. And it's a guy who literally didn't even he didn't barely audition for it. He just auditioned as a goof, and everyone was like, this guy's actually pretty funny. He's got the voice, he had that look. He plays a perfect snarky asshole, and he kind of comes off like that in real life. But like, so those two characters are great. But why they decided to cast Dante is just beyond me.
I feel like he plays that role so perfectly, where he's just this annoying guy. Like can't make up his own damn mind.
I feel that about everybody though.
They're all. That's the problem. Is they're all so bad that like even. It just works. Like if everything's terrible, then you don't really see the difference, and it just has a certain charm to it. And I think it has a charm to it because they're all terrible actors, but it's so overwritten that it's almost Shakespearean at a certain moment where you're like, what is happening? Why? And you know what's funny is it definitely
people don't talk like this.
No, they definitely don't. And it was so funny because my wife and I were talking about like just that she was like, well, that's how people talked in the 90s. And I'm like, no, it's not. People talked like that in Dawson's Creek because they saw Clerks and were like, oh, we could definitely write like teenagers and like young adults like this. And it has this weird effect of like making it seem deeper than it is because these people who can't really act or pull out these long ass overly
soliloquies.
Soliloquies. You just kind of it almost lulls you into it for some reason. It's very difficult.
It's a weird mashup of our world and then a movie world. But on top of that, when I was saying earlier that it was a time capsule, I think it's a time capsule in two parts. It's obviously the look of the 90s, the sound of the 90s. Like I still listen to the Clerks soundtrack. I still have that CD bumming around here, and I'll put it on Spotify what's available. But it's also this time capsule that I think maybe I'm probably speaking, as somebody who was born in 83 and was obviously this is before my time in terms of me being a young 20 something, but eventually getting there. I feel like there's so many parts of this as a time capsule that you look back on and you have both conversations like Kevin's talking about, but memories similar to that and what it was like to have that best friend, right? Who all you did was give each other shit. And it somehow was how you showed each other that you loved each other. The stupid fucking conversations you'd have, the stupid fucking fights you'd have with your girlfriends. The fact that the movie is, so hung up on Dante's still having drama with high school, right? Of like he's just that far removed at 22 or whatever, where he's looking back and these characters who are still from his life, and even like Rick Darris showing up and being a bodybuilder and being like, oh, don't worry that I used to fuck your girlfriend while you dated her. That was way a long time ago. That was high school. It was like 3 years ago, bro. Don't worry about it. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I remember that of like when that was, your young 20 something, when you had the young 20 something friends who didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do. You had all the time in the world and you fucking wasted it watching videos and hanging out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and also perfectly capturing, I think you guys talked about it too, but like just that feeling of that summer job you had with and you got your friends hired too. And then you all were just knuckleheads and totally fucking slacking off the entire time. Like when Tim and Alfredo got put in charge of a coffee shop for no reason.
Yeah, it feels that way. Yeah, no, it's like definitely it's a moment. And it's funny because I feel like this movie gets so much credit for kind of defining this type of genre. And so I feel in some ways harder to look back on it because so many things that I love have been influenced by it over
Yeah.
the years that it's kind of like it doesn't feel novel anymore. But then going back and seeing it, it's like you can totally see the origins of things. And it's like, so while I feel like it doesn't necessarily hold up as a good movie at all, I think that it's so worthy of people's time and it is fascinating enough that watching it makes it good, even in a different way. That's not necessarily about the quality of the film, but more about the storytelling.
Sure. You wondered, and I'm sure you, Tim, have, watching it with Joey and G, I assume, in the house. Like I was surprised that even Jen sitting next to me watching it, and I think she's seen it probably dubbed, however many years ago, but watching it in English for really the first time or hanging out, watching it, her laughing with it and being along for the ride in spite of everything we're talking about, right?
How do you dub fucking Snoochie Boochie?
Well, that's not a
Like,
word,
like
right?
noise,
You just say
noise.
it.
You know what I mean?
That's true. I should
Spoilers, future spoilers. God.
No, I think for and also just as a person who went through a little bit of a film school and just I'm just so fascinated to watch this movie every single time, because the reason I think it works so well is it's such a simplistically perfect concept. It's just two dudes behind a checkout counter at a convenience store.
A day in the life.
When I watched, when he tells the story of how he did the first screener and no one was there except for that one old man, and that old man ended up being like this very influential person in the indie scene. That guy, they interviewed him, and he was like, I read what this was about, and there was just something so fascinating about a day in the life of these convenience store clerks. And it's so true. And like when you hear how Kevin got the idea, obviously he read articles about Robert Rodriguez, and Robert Rodriguez was like, hey, the key number one, like first thing you got to do if you're on a budget, if you're an indie filmmaker, is work with what you got. And he was like, well, I got a convenience store. I got access to a convenience store and a video store. And that's exactly what you see in the movie. And it's so cool to just see, like, it's one of those ideas that's so simple that I wish I thought of it. Like, I watch it and I kick myself for not being like, this was so simple. And like, you look at it now and you're like, I could probably make this movie in a week with,
it's easy.
With the assets that we have right now, the cameras we have right now. It would look 10 times better, sound 10 times better. And I'm pretty sure we could pull in decent actors that would come and do it, but it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be nearly as good.
Yeah. No, you can't catch that magic. That was like the magic, the magic in a bottle was all there for them. They had the perfect formula and it was the perfect time. I don't think you can replicate that now,
No, it's everything, Andy. Earlier, you're talking about your friend's older brothers and how like this was art, and I remember the same way, like, just being on like GameFAQs forums and just trying to educate myself on culture and being like what are the best comedy movies of all time that I don't know? And like Clerks would always come up as exactly what you're talking about, where it's like I felt like I wasn't cultured because it was like an underground movie. Yeah, and like then you look at it, it's black and white. It's like it's so pretentious to think about all the things that go into
the title cards. The title cards, right?
Yeah, oh my god, it's like
I remember when I had watched
that style.
I remember watching Mallrats first and then watching Clerks, and I was talking to a friend about it who was into them. I guess it must have been junior high or maybe high school. I forget, freshman year, and it was this conversation of I like Mallrats more, and his first thing was like, oh, what do you like about Clerks? I'm like, oh, and he's like, did you not understand the title cards? I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're like a 12-year-old. Fuck off.
Well, do you guys know the inspiration behind the title cards?
Mm-mm.
So I just read this the other day. I had never heard of this before, but apparently there's 9 of them, and it's supposed to quasi mirror the Dante's Inferno,
Circled
which is why the main character's name is Dante. And at the end, he was actually, the original ending is he dies. He gets shot.
Damn, that's
dead,
bro.
You can see
that.
Right?
The original ending for the film was meant to continue from where Randall throws the "I show you where open" sign to Dante. After Randall leaves, Dante proceeds to count out the register and does not notice another person entering the store. Upon Dante's informing the latecomer that the store is no longer open, the customer shoots Dante, killing him. Afterward, the killer makes off with all the money in the cash register, and then some other bullshit happens. But yeah, that was actually like the original ending. And they screened that, and eventually he took it out because they wanted it to mirror the conversation that Dante had about the Empire Strikes Back and how it like ends as a bummer or whatever, and it just wasn't tracking well.
He had also said that his influences were like Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, and Do the Right Thing has a very distinctive style where everything's kind of comical up until the very end where something very serious happens. And so he wanted to have that as a beat, but literally every single person, including the first guy that saw it, everyone at Miramax, and like a couple of the guys that were helping him, or one of the guys that was helping him sort of like shepherding him through the process, were like, you got to change this ending. And there he was like,
so even when it went to the film festival, this was the ending.
Yeah, so when it went to the
Oh, wow, I
original
didn't
film
realize that,
festival,
yeah.
yeah, when it went to the film festivals, it was the ending, and he apparently, I think it was, I forget the name of the guy, but it was, or what his role was, but there was a guy who basically his job is like be a producer's like, not assistant, but he basically goes in and finds indie producers and helps them get distribution. And this was like one of the last projects he had worked on, or he was going to quit, and then he found this, and I guess he kept going. But he called him and was like, I got to be honest with you, like, this movie shouldn't end this way. And Kevin's like, well, I want it to be like an impactful ending and yada, yada, yada. And he goes, can I be blunt with you? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you shot him because you don't know how to end your fucking movie. And Kevin's like, you're absolutely right. He goes, you should absolutely just, he's like, you have the shot of the two friends. These are the main characters. This is the dynamic of the movie. And you literally have him throw him the sign and he's like, you're closed or whatever. I forgot what the closing line was. And he goes, that's where you should end your movie. And it ends, and it's so perfect because it just is, that's the end of the day. It's a day in the life. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were with him from the start to the end.
Yeah, you can actually watch the end. It's on the Clerks
Very bummer.
10th anniversary special edition.
It also does not have the impact that you think it should have because it's shot so poorly that it's like when Greg Miller pretends like he's dead on camera. We're like, all right, let him cry it out.
It's exactly like that. The two other facts I got for you is the MPAA originally gave Clerks an NC-17 rating based purely on the film's explicit dialogue, as it contains no real violence and no clearly depicted nudity. But this would have serious financial implications for the film, as very few cinemas in the United States would even screen it. Miramax then hired a civil liberties lawyer to appeal the decision, and they eventually got R rating without any alteration.
What's his name? Not Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz. Yeah, one of O.J. Simpson's lawyers.
Yeah. The word fuck and its derivatives are said 91 times.
What did you say?
Who was it?
Alan Dershowitz.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The word fuck and its derivatives are said 91 times throughout the film. Like, that's the thing, too, is like this movie just like, I feel like so many people liked it because it's like, oh, they're saying things that they're not supposed to be saying on TV, and especially in theaters. Like, I feel like that's even more like you watch this and I'm like, it's so egregious, but it is just kind of like that's how people talk.
But even when they shot it too, like some of the actors, like the guy that played Randall was in that scene where he has to talk about all that, where he's reading off the list of like porno movies. He was quoted as saying, he was like, I made
white come.
it cuts into like a close up of him because he didn't feel comfortable saying those things in front of the woman and her child.
Yeah.
And so he was like, so literally they had to get her reaction shots separate, and by Kevin just reading the list to her, and those are like real reaction shots to her being like, that's fucking horrible. But even the actors, because they weren't real actors, they didn't understand. They were just normal people who were like, I don't think we should be saying all this stuff because I wouldn't say this with adults in the room. But there were no adults in the room. It was literally Kevin making a movie for his friends with his friends of like 23-year-old dudes. And that's exactly how they talked, Let's
get into the plot, guys.
It's a hard one.
I think we can like just get beats of the plot, Greg.
Because it's like, welcome to Leonardo, New Jersey. Dante Hicks wakes up in a closet while his phone's ringing.
So plucky.
Pretty weird.
Is it though, Tim? Is it weird to wake up in a closet like that?
Yeah, it is.
Because like I had a friend growing up, lived in a closet, slept in there all the time.
Yeah, but we saw
totally
his
normal.
bed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, my friend had a bed right next to that closet. Literally right next to it, 2 feet away.
As someone who's thought about it a lot, the takeaway I always put in my head was that, especially since the phone's in the laundry basket, he was in the closet talking to Caitlin, and he wanted to keep it quiet so his mom wouldn't hear, or whoever, his parents in the other room. And then at the end of that, when he hung up, he's like, I'm going to sleep here. That's how Greg justified it watching
that makes
this
a
movie
lot
over
of
and over again.
sense.
Perfect.
Yeah, does it. Anyways, he wakes up. He's got a dog. Congratulations, everybody. We had some music playing. Dante walks out. He makes it looks like he makes his cereal in the bowl of the sugar, the top of the sugar bowl, which I always found weird too, because it's just him scooping sugar in there and then drinking out of it. You're like, all right.
Yeah, it was like sugar. I thought it was coffee at first. I was like, that's a weird way to make coffee. Yeah. But you're right. That makes more sense. It's a sugar bowl. You don't keep coffee in a freaking weird cat porcelain thing.
Exactly. He gets in his car. He's got a motorcycle parked right in front of the house in the sidewalk. I don't like that. but it doesn't matter. He
I
drives
love
the
that.
Quick Stop, which will become obviously the most iconic Quick Stop in all of America. Gets there, pulls in, parks the car, goes inside, and then just starts the mundane tasks of opening the Quick Stop in Leonardo, New Jersey, right? Yeah. He makes the coffee, he puts in one rack of newspapers, realizes the other one didn't get delivered, goes back outside, goes to a regular newspaper stand, puts a coin in, takes a giant stack of newspapers. I don't know. I remember every time, not every time, but when I would get written up in newspapers, this is what I would do as well. I'd go there like to the outside the supermarket, put in the change, get all of them, leave.
So that's like
remember-
stealing, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, because I never knew the rules. Because that at one point that happened in Dumb and Dumber, with the coin, and you could take multiples or whatever. But
Yeah.
I never understood. Like, is this just like a courtesy thing? Like, I never knew. Like,
no, they,
oh, you only-
they weren't. Whoever designed that was just like,
Yeah.
guys, we could make this a one, like where it would spit one out a piece, but that's just going to take an extra $5.
It's a-
So
it's
let's
a-
just
it's
want
more
two
mechanisms
newspapers.
to break.
More
It's a
mechanisms.
bizarre honor function, though.
Yeah.
You
It
know?
is, yeah.
Like nothing else in our society works quite like that.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways, he goes back. He goes to open the shutters. Turns out gum's been jammed in the shutters. So he goes inside, gets a sheet, gets some shoe polish, writes the iconic sign, "I assure you we're open." Hangs that outside. Again, to your Nick's point, or Tim's point from the Facts of the Furious, that this was filmed at night. So you needed a reason why you wouldn't see anything outside behind them. After that, he sets everything up. The cat's there too. And guess what? It's time for a day at the office. So he sits down or stands at the desk, puts his head into his hands, and the movie is off to the races. Our first plot point here is that a dude walks in and wants makes a coffee, and then is like, "Do you mind if I drink it here?" And Dante's like, "Sure, whatever. I don't. Why would you stand in front of me and drink your coffee?" One of the local deadbeats comes in to buy cigarettes, and the guy starts asking him all these kind of questions. "How old are you? How long have you been smoking?" Tosses a diseased lung on the countertop. God, then he's like, "Why don't you pick up a pack of Chuli's gum?" You know what I mean? It's cheaper than cigarettes.
Greg, you're from the East Coast, right?
No.
Is Chuli's gum a thing on the East Coast?
No. Well, I'm not from the East Coast, but I assure you it is not. Because again, remember, it's the same way in another one for you here. The reason everybody comes in and says, "Can I get a pack of cigarettes?" and never says a brand is because they couldn't say a brand.
Oh my God. And I watched this back I think I must have watched this in 94. And even then, like, that's when I started playing around with smoking cigarettes. And it annoyed. Well, I would like my brother would have a pack. I'd have like one here and there, just try to be cool and pretend like I was older. And then of course it led to a lifelong addiction. Thanks, Matt. But it always bothered me that people walked in and said pack of cigarettes, because as a smoker, Kevin, doesn't it just grate on you? Or you're like, no, you say, "Oh, can I get a pack of Camel Lights? Can I get a pack of Marlboro Lights? Can I get Campbell Crushers or whatever?" You say your brand, you're a smoker. You don't walk in and be like, "Let me get a 6-pack of beer." The guy would be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, no,
What
but
kind of beer do you want?
Kevin quit for New Year's, though. That was his resolution, right, Kev?
I haven't smoked in several months.
Look at that. Perfect. Proud of you, Kev.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think that was my resolution. My resolution was to post more on social media. And that's been wonky as shit.
I can't tell who's kidding right now.
Julie shakedown's happening. Once that guy buys his gum and leaves, Dante's like, "I mean, you want to, can you enjoy the coffee outside?" He's like, "No, I'm fine here." He's like, "Well, fine. I don't want you to annoy the customer." He's like, "Sorry." He starts to put it away, and another dude walks in. He's like, "What's that? How long you been smoking?" Right around here probably is when we cut outside and introduce the world of Jay and Silent Bob.
Introduce the world.
Noise.
Yeah, Jay walks up, Silent Bob, and this is where they will sit and sell drugs, which is never made abundantly clear until way later in the film. Jen was like, "What are they doing?" I'm like, "They're drug dealers. They're just not really making a big deal about it yet."
Well, by the way, I mean, I don't know when it gets there, and if you're gonna even remember, but my all-time favorite fucking scene of any Kevin Smith movie is, for no reason, there's just a quick cutaway outside. There's one light, you can barely see what's happening, and he puts down the beatbox.
Yeah.
And he starts dancing, and then fucking Kevin it's like Silent Bob fucking breaks it down. It is like, my wife was watching with me, and she was like, "This is the best. This is my favorite fucking scene. This has got such good energy."
Those scenes, because I think it's 3 of them, because it's one where he puts it down, it starts going, it kind of starts bobbing, then it cuts to another time, and he's going a little harder, and then he cuts to the 3rd time, and he throws over to Silent Bob, and that's when you get him dancing. It's just that little, just these are who those characters are. That little world building that they do in that world is, I really love, man. They're so outrageous, but at the same time, you kind of know people that are a little similar.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that's the thing.
True,
Like,
Kevin, our friend True. He's
Oh,
Jay,
God,
and I
it's
hate
the
it.
worst.
I
It's
hate
the
it.
worst.
So, but
It's
but
so-
the fun the best the meta part, of course, is that Jay is Jay, right? He wrote that character for Jason Mewes. He wrote him in because he did all those things, and then of course Jason Mewes, when he got the part, was like, I can't do this on camera. Like I do these things. Like he was constantly like, there's a part where he's just like going down like and imitating fellatio on people,
I'd
and he's
go
like,
down-
Jay,
line him up like I'd go down like a circus seal.
Oh my God.
It's like that was just something that Jason Mewes used to do, but he was like, he got so nervous having to do it on camera because he was like, I do that for myself. I do that to make myself laugh. He's like, it's so weird to do it in front of other people. And then I don't know if Tim, if you have this piece of trivia, but during that dance scene, he was so embarrassed that he made everyone, including the camera op, leave.
Go into
So
the video store
The
to hang
director
out
of
while he
photography
dances.
focused the camera, turned it on to hit record, and then they went in and then they did the whole dance scene, which is just
That's
so
It's
amazing.
hilarious.
And again, obviously no future spoilers, but Jay and Silent Bob become far bigger stars of these movies as they go on. So it's always fun to watch this and see what they initially were before they become cartoon characters and just like get even crazier. But even just from like their literal introduction of when they walk up there and Jay takes off his coat and throws it over to Bob, and Bob just tosses it on the ground. It's, like, it's such a great encapsulation of who these people are and where we're starting from with them. Anyways, jump back into the quick stop. In there, the Chuli's Gum guy, who we'll find out is Chuli's Gum, the guy is rolling up his sleeves and leading this sermon against cigarettes and against Dante, and he has just the fucking great line on camera, just like, and now he's gonna tell you he's just following orders. Well, friends, let me tell you about another group of hate monsters that were just following Nazis. Oh no, I'm not a fucking Nazi. This goes on and escalates until he calls him a cancer merchant. Again, he's like, he does the whole thing again. I just love the way the guy grabs the gun. Chuli's Gum. Now I am a paying customer. I'm buying some Chuli's Gum. It
He's
continues
just-
to escalate though. They
Like
start throwing.
Dante, he's such a Paul Rudd character where he's always stuck in the middle of bullshit.
Sure.
And I love it because I think we've all been there. We've all
Sure.
sort of Nazi. What are you talking about? Like I'm just
Yeah,
fucking, you know, it's
Well,
great.
we've all done this podcast before, so yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I mean, it's that thing where, and granted, I think at this point it's too hard for me to separate good acting from bad acting, but Brian O'Halloran's Dante is so good at what it does, and I don't like Dante so much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, he's
it-
a frustrating
like,
character.
he's so frustrating, and it's I think as many times as we've watched this movie, Kev, right? Like, it is that idea of, you know who he is and how weak-willed he is and how he, like, Randall has him dead to rights. He just delivers the information the wrong way. Veronica has him dead to rights, but she's being too, I don't even know, she's being too supportive, right? And that's what, by the end, he figures that out or whatever. But it is this thing of like, what a little shitbag Dante is. And he's shown throughout in every situation he's dropped into, right? Anyways, they start calling him cancer merchant and pelting with cigarettes. At this point, we had seen the door open. Veronica had entered. She gets a fire extinguisher. She stands on top of it, and you get like that 90s guitar riff, Andy. She sprays them all with the fire extinguisher, which stops the action. She goes, "Who's leading this mob?" And Walt Flanagan's first line in the movie is he coughs, he goes, "That guy," and it's the dude trying to leave. Show me some credentials. Slowly, he whips out his stuff. He's a Chuli's Gum representative. Veronica puts it all together that he's going around driving up anti-smoking sentiment to, in fact, sell more Chuli's Gum. That's right. He leaves. Everybody else leaves except Walt Flanagan, who orders a pack of cigarettes from Dante, who is incredulous that this man is now ordering cigarettes from him.
That moment's so good.
Yeah.
So another thing from the documentary was that one of the acquisitions guys that was really championing this at Miramax was a younger guy, and he recognized that this was what the movie was. Loved it, identified with it, put a bunch of people that were. He took all the young people from the office that he knew would get it, and organized a screening, and then invited Harvey Weinstein to come look at it. But Harvey Weinstein was a smoker, and so the first scene where the guy's like anti-smoking, he just got up and left. So the first time he had a chance to watch this and acquire it, he was just like, "This movie sucks. I don't want this," and left. And it wasn't until Sundance way later that he realized that, like, he recognized how good it was.
That's awesome. So now that the Chuli's Gum guy has left, we get a scene break here. Maybe more Jay and Silent Bob outside. Yeah. Do we introduce Olaf here? Maybe we do. Maybe we don't.
Maybe.
This is where this movie's gonna be so hard to piece together from a platform. Yeah, but
Would you like
some girl making pretty. Fuck?
Fucking Max Scoville ass.
or whatever the hell Jay says to her.
But here's another perfect example of like how he used the cast, right? Like, do you know who that girl was?
No.
Who was like, "Is he your cousin? Is he really Russian?" This is the makeup artist.
Nice.
that they hired and then couldn't, and then they didn't like her work because she was not good, and so they stopped using makeup. And they literally put her in for that one scene. So the first scene they shot was the scene between Randall and Caitlin, where he's breaking up with her for
Veronica.
Veronica rather. So he's breaking up with her for Dante in the video store, and if you watch that scene, he looks like a raccoon because the makeup artist didn't know what she was doing, so she put like super dark eyeliner and what I don't know what the hell it's called on him, and so they hated it so much. They're like, we're not doing makeup anymore for this movie. But then they put her in a couple scenes because she was like she could hold the scene.
That's great. When we cut back, there's a pile of money on the table or on the counter, and behind the counter, it's Veronica and Dante there. Veronica's basically sitting like a back pillar. Dante's laying there doing her nails or whatever. And so people come up and they put their change down. It says, take what you take, be honest or whatever, basically take the right change, put in the right money. And this starts off a conversation of why would you do that? How much, there's $3 in there and quarters, some singles or whatever. Why would you do that? If people, if people think they're being watched, they'll actually act accordingly and they'll actually be good people and do it or whatever. And this again sets up what this movie is just long, winding conversations as they go through this and do all these things, right? And so yeah, it's a conversation between them, a glimpse into their life and their relationship here. Of course, Veronica, a college student, Dante not. She wants him to go back, which will become a big part of this conversation going forward. It comes down to they start talking about sex, obviously, and how it takes. There's a little girl outside, little kid outside. It's talking about how
not the right time.
Good to put him in your house. Talking about making a man come is easy. Making a woman come takes talent. They go on this way and talking back and forth about it until finally she asks how many people he slept with. He says, "Have we had this conversation before? Maybe, I don't know." Blah, blah. He says 12. She flips out. How many have you had? You want to know how many I've had sex with? I've had sex with 3 people. And he's like, "Wow, that's such a low number." Blah blah blah. They continue talking about that a little bit more. And she's like, for dropping a bombshell on me like that, you owe me big time. I want you to come back to the seminar they're doing at school about getting back into a scholastic program after an extended break or whatever. They stand up. There is Scott Mosier himself, who will be known as Snowball in this scene, staring at the fucking light.
What's his character's name? It's something like the idiot man-child or something like that.
It's like William, I think. It's William.
Yeah.
She calls him William or whatever, but then he's Snowball.
Willem?
Huh?
No, nothing. Sorry.
They make eye contact and they start talking. It's clear that Snowball and Veronica know each other. That's cool. He's catching up with this Veronica, right? Is who she used to run with or whatever, and how he knew her or whatever. All right, cool. He leaves in a very awkward way, looking at the mirror, trying to leave.
Weird.
Always weird.
And
He
slams in one of the little
racks of
racks.
cookies or whatever.
Weird character.
He's such a
high-end
weird.
stupid.
Yeah.
Willem the idiot man-child is what he's.
Yeah.
That one's listed as Snowball's full thing. And so then this begins the conversation of how do you know him or whatever. Oh, and he used to hang out with me and Veronica. Oh, that's weird. And, we called him Snowball. And what does that mean? It's God, this kid's outside. When he would get a blowjob, he wanted to spit back in his mouth while kissing. And Dante's like, "Oh my God, that's fucked up." Yada yada. I guess Veronica will get talked in anything. I fucked it up. Not Veronica. She's Veronica, right? So whoever, whatever. God, I don't have that written down anywhere. Anyways, whatever her friend was. And what do you mean? It wasn't her. It was me. And Dante's like, "What do you mean it was you?" And she's like, I sucked his dick. I blew it back in his mouth. Whatever. And Dante's like, "Wait, he wasn't one of the 3 people you just listed or whatever." And she's like, "Well, no, it wasn't sex. It was just a blowjob."
I love this conversation.
Yeah, and this is like the one of I think the most iconic things in terms of lines of dialogue from this is it escalates and gets to, well, how many? And he starts screaming at her, and she's like, "Well, fucking let me think about it." And she comes back with 36, and he goes, "36 including me?" She goes, 37. It's 37. The dude walks up, and there's 2 of these great lines. Dude walks up to buy something. He's like, "My girlfriend 37 days in a row." And she's like, "What does it fucking matter? It's going down. It didn't matter. We'd go out. We'd end up fooling around. I'd go sooner or later. I'd go down on the guy." And he's like, "Why wouldn't you have the decency to sleep with her like a normal person?" And she's like, "Well, I only slept with the people I loved, which, by the way, is you," and yada, yada, yada. But he's, of course, Dante in this, 22-year-old conversation is so hung up on this number and everything else like this. When she leaves to go to class, which she was trying to get out to go do, he's still pissed or whatever. And so when she leaves, he opens the door and goes, "Trying to suck any dick on the way to the parking lot." And the dude who's standing there starts walking. He's like, "Hey, you come back here. Get back here." Fucking amazing. I love it. I love that whole fucking exchange so much, right? Now, of course, the world of cinema will be introduced to the one and only Randall Graves. There's a woman standing outside of RST Video waiting to rent a movie, in which Randall walks up and over there, and well, actually, I'm skipping a little bit there, but like it was that the customer showed up, right, and was like had his tape and was being all rude to Dante. It was like, hey, I'm fucking here to thing that he was supposed to be open 20 minutes ago. He's not open still. And Dante's like, I've already called his house twice. I'm sure he'll be here. He's like, well, no, you should fucking, I went in there. He was sleeping the other day. Another great line, right? I went in there and sleeping. I'm sure he wasn't sleeping. He was probably just resting his eyes. Resting his eyes. What does that mean? He's an air traffic controller.
He's responsive. Like, actually, that's his night job. It's so perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Snarky fucking kids, right? And so he's like, yeah, I wanted to rent something else for tonight. He's like, well, if you just, leave your name, I'm sure he can set it aside for any toss. He's like, don't strain yourself, Sonny. I'm going to Big Choice Video. You give him that thing. The name's Wachowski or whatever the fuck it is. Like, no, it reads his number and leaves. Thus us setting. Oh, and then Dante, of course, picks up and goes, "You got your keys," and tosses them in the trash. Then Randall shows up. The woman's waiting outside. He shakes the door like he's a customer angrily. And he's like, "What are you here for?" She's here for that whatever shitty kids movie or whatever. And she can see it right there. And Randall's like, "I'm there too. That's what I want too." And he's like, there's this whole thing of who'll get it first, and he bets $20 that he'll get it instead of her. So he fucks off into the quick stop. Does his Randall walk in, the Wrangler, right? To which he's surprised.
Greg, real quick, were the kids just yelling outside right now?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I thought I heard. Okay.
You're not even supposed to be there. We skipped this because we already kind of talked about it in the intro. But of course, Dante not supposed to be at work today. He's supposed to be relieved at 12. The first guy called in sick. The boss is supposed to come in at 12. He tells.
There's never a worse feeling than that.
Sure,
like
just being on the hook for somebody else
that you don't like, but then having to be there the day you're not supposed to be there. Like
the worst.
I've been there.
Like,
I've been called in several times,
and you see the number on your phone, and you're like,
yeah.
fuck,
yeah,
fuck. Like we used to do. I think we used to have. I forgot what job I used to have. I think it was a serving job, but you'd be like on call, so you might have to go in that night, and it was just the fucking worst.
Yeah.
Randall gets the tapes and the keys, and he goes to open up the video store, letting the woman in. Very funnily, where he goes in, she's astounded that he's the one who opens it, and then he leans out the door, lets her in. Pretty much immediately, like Randall fucks back off to the quick stop, locks it up, comes back in, starts reading the newspaper with Dante.
So relatable. I love it.
They're catching up, and this is like the first, I would say, if we were actually doing the movie, like this is where the plot really starts to formulate. Where it's like, oh, he's like, I tried calling you last night at like 2:30. Why the fuck didn't you answer? Your phone was busy. Why? And he's like, oh, I was actually on the phone with Caitlin or whatever. And obviously, there's more push and pull to get that information. But we're set up now that Dante's ex-girlfriend Caitlin, who cheated on him all the time, and sounds like it was just a very toxic relationship, has once again resurfaced in his life. They've been talking on the phone. Things have been going really well. Dante hopeful that this can turn into something more, even though he is in fact dating Veronica and thus being a complete dirtbag, as I knew so many people who were in their early 20s, right? Randall is continuing asking questions about this or whatever, and finally gets this great moment while reading the paper. And he's like, well, I think the four of you should sit down and talk this out. And Dante's like, the four of us? He goes, yeah, you, Veronica, Caitlin, and Caitlin's fiance, tossing the paper down to reveal she is engaged to an Asian design major.
What a weird moment. All of this is so like a sign of the times of like, things just don't work this way.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this?
Which part?
But,
that you like the newspaper announcement? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But also,
but I mean,
love that,
again, Greg, you're from the East Coast, right? People do that still to this day.
I'm in Chicago. What are you talking about?
I love that going forward, the only thing that people know about him is that he's an Asian design major.
Yeah,
now,
and everyone read the
is
paper.
Is he a person of Asian descent who is a design major, or is he majoring in Asian design?
His name's Sang. He's in.
Okay, that's right. That's right. He makes that horrible joke where he's like, past tense.
Yeah, exactly. A different time. So this rocks Dante, of course, and again, we probably get another interstitial cut outside. I forget what happens. Jay and Silent Bob do something. Randall goes back to
goofy.
Yeah, something hilarious happens, but we cut back into the quick stop after that. It's Dante alone now, walking around.
We get the scene with the woman, I think, which is one of the best scenes, which is where he's like, I don't appreciate your ruse, ma'am.
Your cunning attempt to trick me. I don't think that happens yet, but yeah, that's a great one if you want to put it in here. We can say that was no, because he comes. That brings him back. So I think that's after this. Doesn't matter. We're splitting hairs on a movie that's whatever, a great scene or whatever. Sorry. Dante has this box of gravel shavings. To this day, I've never been able to wrap my head around what that was because I never set up.
Here's the problem is for me, the black and white is it's just distracting. It never adds to the experience. And oftentimes like this, I'm like, what is actually happening? Because there's weird shit, and then the cat poops in it. But
Yeah.
what is it?
Was
I
it
got-
not a kitty litter box?
I don't.
I always
That's
thought it
what
was
I thought it
kitty
It's
litter.
played as a joke that the cat poops in it.
Yeah, I always thought that it was something the cat wasn't supposed to poop in.
Oh, I always thought like he was moving it or cleaning it or something, and then went away
He
to
just poops in
make
front
this
of a
phone
customer?
call, and like poops in front of the customer, and the customer's just like, all right.
This whole scene just like could be taken straight out of a Billy Madison movie, like where Billy Madison and early Adam Sandler stuff just have these weird cuts that have nothing to do with the rest of the movie, and it's just here's this scene of this weird thing that's happening on screen.
It's just another thing going wrong for Dante. Because even if it is the cat litter box, this isn't how he wanted it to happen. So whatever, right?
Did you guys realize they actually got the cat to shit?
Yeah, well,
The cat's actually shitting, which is weird.
he tells us how long did they shoot for? Is that covered in your documentary?
He said, yeah, they talk about it where
Really?
he talks about that shot because someone asked him like the cat really shit, and he goes, he was like, we basically didn't let the cat shit for like a day and a half and kept feeding it, and like we would stop it every time it wanted to shit, and he was like, obviously that's why you don't see like this film was approved by PETA, but he was like we turned the camera on, the cat jumped into the box, we turned the camera on, and we finished the mag, and the cat hadn't shit yet. And he's like, shit, this is the most expensive shot in this whole film because they wasted so much film trying to get this thing to shit. And they reloaded the bag, turned it back on, and right on cue, the cat like turned, looked at the camera, and just was like, and just started shitting like tremendously. And it was like, we got it.
They interviewed the cat. They interviewed the cat, and
He just said meow.
It's like, but like you can't. This is the thing. Like I don't believe in like divine intervention or anything like that. But that shot is perfect. The cat is literally like staring right off to the camera, so you can see its eyes, but it's not burning the lens.
Yeah.
And it's just shit. And you can tell that because it's shaking its back leg that it's actually shitting. And then the guy there, who I think was just one of Kevin Smith's neighbors or friends or whatever, just like is looking down at the cat shitting and not smiling or doing anything. He's just amazed that the cat is shitting in front of him. And like you can't like that could have been the first take, or it could have been 15 hours later that this cat. It's a cat. You can't tell it's a shit. But Kevin Smith was just blessed on this. Everything just worked out properly, you know, and like not the least of which is like Scott Mosher did the sound for it. How many times have you worked on a project where someone just royally fucked up the sound?
Oh yeah, no,
that is like
this movie sounds decent.
It sounds decent, right? And so Mosher was like, I was so nervous because he had done sound for one project in film school. That was it. That was his entire experience with sound design. And location sound is really fucking hard. It's really easy to fuck up and really hard to get right. And he literally tells a story where he was like, as we started syncing dailies, I had this like tremendous anxiety that the dialogue was going to be out of sync because he was recording analog dialogue. And he goes, there was only 2 shots that started to drift because get this, as the batteries died in the recorder, it slows down the record. So I don't know if you guys, and so he was like, there was only a couple times where it would just get slow. Like that's what you would hear as the batteries ran out. But he goes, other than that, it was perfect.
Wow,
I'm like, how 21 days of shooting did you record perfect sound your first fucking time out? It's ridiculous.
I love it when you look through the credits, there's just a fun credits to read in general, but like they put boom guy and it's like whoever grabbed it.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's just how it was. Like whoever fucking wasn't on camera, you're gonna hold this goddamn thing up.
Not only that, but he tells a story about they broke the boomstick. The boomstick that rented just broke. One of the threads broke, which has always happens to booms. Cheap booms, that always happens. It breaks. You can't extend it anymore. So they just taped it to one of the hockey sticks.
Nice, very on brand, right? Yep. So cat poops in the box. We've covered that. And as that's happening, Dante had left it to go call the newspaper to see if there was a correction.
What a stupid and sad, pathetic move of like, hey, are you sure it's these people? Because
maybe it was a jealous ex-boyfriend.
We talk all the time.
Yeah.
Hello.
But it's the kind of stupid shit you do when you're insecure and like.
Oh, totally. You're a dumb kid. Like again, it's a great time. It's a great time capsule of how dumb you are at 20.
Like, do you remember when you actually used to bother with thinking about how many sexual partners your girlfriend had?
Yes.
Like, who fucking cares? It doesn't matter at all. But that's the stupid shit you obsess about when you're lost in real life, and the only thing you can have control over is obsessing about that one little thing that's right in front of you.
Yeah,
it's weird though because Dante, to me, like to quote Nick here, he looks like a 37-year-old man.
He does look old,
and like, it's only the goatee though.
And that's the thing is,
what
like,
does it.
It's weird to me because Randall is just you are a 20-something-year-old. I totally fucking believe it. But yeah, it's like him next to Dante. I'm like, This is kind of weird. Kind of like a Doc and Marty situation.
It's the goatee, man. That's all it is.
Was it that bad? I don't know.
I don't think it was that bad. I
It was all that
I'm
bad.
doing math to figure out how old he was. So he was 25 when they filmed.
Well, that's
Yeah,
not bad.
it's-
He looks.
he's
He
ready to
does
go.
look
When the
cool.
movie came out, I guess.
Well, he's also, he's taller. He just has a bigger presence on camera, so he's going to look a little.
He
older,
also dresses very differently. Like he's got like his shirt tucked in with a belt on. You know, it's not a style that
but- oh my
like
God.
was even
It was
relevant
so
in that
fucking
time.
bad even back then.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to
But
I will
again,
give a
that
shout out
fits
to
for the
like.
character. I feel like.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's kind of a dork. But I
Yeah.
will give a shout out to the boots tucked or the pants tucked into the combat boots.
Hell yeah.
that
That
look
never
will
went out of
never
style.
go out of style for me.
Never
It'll
go.
never go out of style. Jeez.
Tim, that's what I'm gonna say. When we get back from quarantine, that's gonna be my new look.
Okay, cool.
I love it.
Excited to see it.
We'll call it
We
The Last of
discovered
Us.
that no, it is not a misprint. She is actually marrying an Asian design major. Dante is perplexed, but then smells the cat shit, and we cut back to the video store. We're back in the video store, and this is not the one we were just talking about. Is it?
It might be the titty where he has to go through the list with the wife, where she's like, "Do you have puffy?"
No.
Powers
Hold
three?"
on. I got it. This is where he's watching what he will say is Empire Strikes Back, and you get the really bad laser sounds. He turns it off, and he goes back over to the store, and he goes back to talk to Dante, and they have the conversation, of course, about personal politics, right? Something never sat right. Which they have the great conversation, of course, which back to what you're talking about, Kevin, of the conversations we all had with our friends, but never saw in movies, which is ridiculous now to say, but I remember when movies didn't reference other movies, so it was like this weird. They were always these weird fantasy lands.
It's
whereas
always
this one
cool.
is- yeah, so this one was awesome to hear them. What'd you like better, Empire or
So
Jedi?
relatable.
Right? And they go back and forth, and Dante picks Jedi, right? No, a Jedi, right? And then no, it's the other way
Empire.
around.
Empire.
Randall's Jedi.
Yeah, blasphemy.
It's
Yes,
a great
okay.
choice. Great choice.
All Jedi had was a bunch of Muppets. But he talks about how, it ends on a downer. And that's all life is. It's a series of down endings, right? And he's going through that and having that conversation there with him. Then it comes up, though, the whole thing of the second Death Star, when it got blown up, was filled with non-Empire employees, right? People who were there to fucking build the storm drains. And, do you think the average stormtrooper knows anything about installing a toilet main? All they know is killing in white uniforms. Talking about all
This
these
is such a
independent contractors.
Great little. All I know is killing in white uniforms or shooting in white uniforms.
And so he's talking about all the aluminum siders and roofers that would have to come out there and work on this thing as it was being built. While they debate this and if personal politics play into these kind of roles, a dude's getting coffee. He walks over. He is a local roofer. He in fact tells you that being a roofer, yes, personal politics play a huge role in it.
It's so funny. Like it's
Tells the
just
story of how
this is what makes the scene great to me because just talk about the movie. All that's fun, but having this guy oh no, I know this. It's just such a that's what makes this movie special to me. Is they take the normal conversations, but then they add this weird element to it that always just makes it just funny enough where I'm it's surreal.
Yeah. He says he got an offer to work at Babyface's Bambino's house, or roof his house. The gangster. He didn't like but he knew the risk was too great, even though the reward was high. But he passed it over to his other friend. His friend took the job. The next week they put out a hit on the Bambino dude. The friend got killed roofing or whatever. Didn't even finish shingling or something. So yes, roofer politics do play into this. And Dante and Randall have been educated for a second. Then we jump back to the video store. This is where Randall's reading the newspaper, and there's that annoying woman who's like, they say so much, but they never tell you if it's any good. He's like, excuse me, sir. And there's this whole exchange without Randall ever looking at her, right? I find it best to stay out of people's personal affairs or the people's affairs or whatever. They go back and forth, and then she does the thing where she turns around and turns back. What about these two? Oh, they both suck. And then she's like, I tricked you. These are the same ones before. I don't appreciate your ruse, ma'am.
I feel like another thing this movie does so well is I worked in retail growing up, and it just it does such a good job of making fun of customers in that is a way of that is real enough but exaggerated, and they'll do that more later on, but at the same time they also kind of put a focus on the people just being Randall and Dante are also fucking things up. They're clearly being bad to the customers, or I like the dialogue that it opens up that gets you to notice.
I think separating all these scenes with these title cards, you got to imagine that while writing this movie, these were all just moments that happened, and you could put it in whatever order you want, but in there they're thinking we have to put. I had a customer one time that just kept asking me about if these movies are good or not. We got to put that in a scene somewhere.
totally.
Let's write something about that, and it just becomes like I don't know, it becomes like a sketch comedy where it's like here's a bit, and none of it really has to connect, but it's all going to equal out to one full day working at the store.
I think the magical thing is there are bits that have small pieces that are going to connect later, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Also, I like that they had too many bits and they're like, let's just do a montage.
Right? Yeah, because that's the thing, right? The lady yells at Randall and says she'll never work there again. Randall opens the door and screams that she's not allowed to rent here anymore. Then he walks up and goes next door.
Jay in the background, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think what I like about this is but his way of dealing with customers and Dante's way of dealing with customers represents their basically philosophical outlook on life, right? Which is that they have that scene later where Dante's like, where Randall's like, you have a title, and so you adhere to what you think that title is, but you don't have to be that. You could be more than that. And then of course spits water in the guy's face, and he's like, I'm a clerk. I'm not supposed to do that, and I just got away with
title
this.
does not dictate behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is sort of the yin and yang of those two, is that Dante is not horrible to customers. He's legitimately trying to do the right thing. He just doesn't realize that he doesn't like the right thing. It's not for him. And that's what he has to come to realize. Whereas Randall knows that this job is shit and treats it accordingly. And and because of that sort of like is happy, you know?
So Randall walks back into the quick stop, tells Dante, you won't believe what this customer just said to me. And Dante's like, stop, look. And they look over, and in the egg department, in the refrigerated section, there's a dude in a suit, Walt Flanagan once again, sitting there, examining all the eggs, screwing with all the eggs or whatever. I think, is this where the montage happens, Kev, where they're like,
they start talking about it, right? Or
you feel better, like who annoy, what kind of customers annoy you? And Dante immediately lists the milkmaids, the women who go through all the jugs of milk looking for one that won't go bad for another decade, right?
Played by Kevin Smith's mom.
Oh, was that? I don't remember that. No, that's a good piece of trivia. And then now it's down the line of this, right? And Randall's like, well, you wouldn't believe the stuff that happens over at the video store. And he's, what video would you get for a 7-year-old boy who wets his bed, right? Do you have any new releases? Navy SEALs.
That's my favorite line because it's so Simpsons. Ooh, Navy SEAls.
Yeah.
When you think about this whole sequence, this had to be the most the most difficult and challenging sequence to film and make, because it's one of the few things that does cut away multiple times, where everything else is just like a one shot of 3-minute conversations. This one actually
there's like
goes
crash
out and does
on this one.
Sound effects
that
are only in this part, and then there's one other that just has some ass. What the fuck were they thinking? It's weird as hell.
So then Dante's like, oh, well, no, I get dumb questions here too. What do you mean there's no coffee? Or what do you mean there's no ice? You mean I gotta drink this coffee hot?
I get that.
I know, right? That guy was ahead of his time.
The 90s were, right? The woman there, he's like, is anything on sale or whatever? And there's like a big sign behind her, new whatever, I don't remember. And then the same Navy SEAL guy pops his head. Yeah, do you have a hubcaps for a 94 or a 94 Dodge hatchback or whatever? He says, ooh, Mini Trucker magazine. Like, it's just a run of dialogue from a non-actor, but it cracks me up every time. Like, do you have the 72 hubcaps for blah?
It's also like that. By the way, that guy, that character the actor is so indicative of the acting in this movie. It's like the most sophomoric. This is the first time I've ever had to do this line delivery in pretty much all of these, where it's said way too fast. You can barely understand what he's saying, but you get the energy out of it somehow.
For years, I thought he said, when he was like the hubcap thing, ooh, I thought he said Mini Choco something, and I thought it was a snack. And then watching it on Amazon, it had the caption, and I was like, oh, Mini Trucker magazine. All right, whatever the fuck that is.
But I do feel like all the way people talk in this, like it's kind of like, you know, like when people are talking, they fuck up lines all the time, you know? Not like even right now, like I can't get my thought out.
But I feel like the difference between that and then like when you're to what Nick's saying is, I remember, you know, when I was on stage performances or whatever, and it would be those things of you're so gung ho of like I just want to nail the line.
Right.
You're not acting the line. You're just saying line all the way. I got it. I nailed it.
I mean, literally, if you go back and watch footage of me from like any high school play that I had lines, I sped through them so fast because you're absolutely right. You're focused on the core mechanics of just getting the line delivery right. And the way his writing was done, it's so flowery and so like ornate with adjectives and adverbs that you can literally see them concentrating and getting through it, and then they kind of come out of some of the
exactly.
Yeah, it's so
Veronica, I see that a lot
so
too.
fast. Yeah.
It's the difference between memorizing lines and reciting them and actually being in the scene. And very few people, the only person that's really ever in the scene is Caitlin and Randall. Everyone else just sort of has that and also
Dante is occasionally.
Dante does a good job, but I think honestly, a lot of this could have been masked and helped with the edit if you had more coverage. So more often than not, you can actually add some pacing into films if you have close-ups and cutaways and things like that. But they didn't have that luxury, so this plays out like a bad high school stage play. And there's like you can tell there's moments where they had to get cutaways because someone fucked up a line so royally they had to cut or cut into the second part of the scene. But like for the most part, he talks about how he was like, we had at most 5 takes of each of these longer scenes, and we had to just watch them and pick which one was good enough.
Good enough.
Like you would never do that. You would, and like imagine that in like a Bond film where you just saw Dame Judi Dench fuck up a line, and you had to just keep it in the film because you didn't have another cut of it. It wouldn't happen.
Can you imagine how scary it must have been looking at like 5 different shots and trying to figure out which one is the most okay to use because you've spent all of your money?
I mean,
you're incredibly deep in debt.
Anyone who's done a project like that, like a quasi-narrative project or a commercial or something like that, knows the dread of realizing you either forgot a shot or you thought you had the coverage that you wanted and it wasn't there. And that's where you have to get really creative with cutaways and things, or you have to do reshoots. And he didn't have either of those luxuries. But there's a certain charm to that. Like there's at the end, I mean, pretty much everything Jason Mewes says, there's a moment where he kind of stumbles over it and then kind of comes back, and it totally takes you out of the movie. But it's so charming, you don't fucking care.
So we're back then to the Eggman or whatever. A woman walks over with a Slim Jim and she's like, I bet I've seen this before. I bet you $1 million. He's a guidance counselor. Saw it at another supermarket. It happens 2-3 times a week now. They pay for everything they break. They never cause a ruckus. They never bother anybody. And they're like, well, why? And like, well, if your job was as meaningless as a high school guidance counselor, wouldn't you lose your mind too or whatever? Because he's searching for the perfect dozen of eggs. Yeah. And I like
how he's like, you can mix and match. He's like, no, you can't do that.
I told you that. It's a line about that, right? And she's basically like, well, that's why it's important to take pride in your work or find a job that's fulfilling or whatever. That's why you want to talk about running through Kevin Smith dialogue just because it's so not how you would talk. She's like, that's why I manually masturbate caged animals for the artificial insemination. Then she walks out. The guys look at each other like, what? She jacks off monkeys. Whoa.
That was Kevin Smith's sister, by the way.
Nice. Yeah. There's another cutaway. We come back though, and the thing I've been leaving out, of course, is that when you watch the movie, but Dante only supposed to be there till noon. It's past that, and he's got a hockey game at 2:00 he wanted to make. He finally calls the boss's house to find out when he'll be relieved, and it turns out the boss is not there. He's gone somewhere. Atlantic City, I forget. He's gone.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. He's gone on a trip. Or Vermont. He went to Vermont this morning. And Dante fucking screams at whoever's on the other end of the phone, and then he's like, what? Oh, I'm sorry. He apologizes to them, hangs up. Randall comes over after having listened to the conversation. Is just like, man, that sucks, blah, blah, blah. How did that, yeah, blah, blah. And he's like, why'd you apologize? And Dante's like, what? Why'd you apologize on the phone? Like that you had every right to be mad, and you still apologize to that person. And then we get into this whole conversation about who Dante Hicks is, who's basically he's a pushover, right? And he buckles like a belt, Randall says. And then eventually Randall gets Dante to apologize to him, and he's like, see, there you go again.
Randall's such a pug, man. I love it.
I know, right? I'll toss it in here. I don't know if this is when it happens, but there's a conversation too at some point where Dante talks about how his mom told him a story of like he wouldn't lift the lid on his potty to poop, and so he just pooped his pants once because Dante is so against shaking up the established order of anything in his life. He just wants to be comfortable.
I think that's later.
The entire stage. Yeah.
I think that's later. I think that happens because it's the shit or get off the pot conversation, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is where he spits water in the guy's face.
No, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet?
No, that's when he rents the car. That's when he borrows Dante's car to go to Big Choice Video, which is how we introduce Caitlin and everything else.
So hard.
Stay out of my fucking lane, Nick. All right. Instead, what happens here is that Dante finally has an act of insubordination, where realizing the boss is in Vermont, he's like, fuck it. He calls the guy to cancel the hockey game, but then comes up with the idea, wait, can the hockey game come to me? So now everybody's there to play hockey. They all want free Gatorade. Another great just throwaway thing.
But I think there was no moment in this movie that really took me back more than seeing a glass bottle of Gatorade.
Oh, right, totally right.
Because it's like I remember that, dude,
Yeah,
and I
me too,
remember
me too.
having them and like seeing that, it was like, holy shit. Of course, you know, the VHS and just the references to the 90s or whatever, but that thing, I was like, holy shit, what a throwback, dude.
And also, this is another moment where it's like we all have those fucking friends where it's just like, oh, you working kind of funny, like, oh, you guys have merch. Can I get some t-shirts? It's like, you don't fucking want these t-shirts. Like, you just want free shit. Like, you just want the idea that you can get something, and it's just like the same
100 pence.
Gatorade. Like, did you really want the Gatorade, or were you just wanting to ask for shit? It reminds me of someone here.
Yeah, Nick.
So yeah, he eventually folds on that, gives them the free Gatorade, yada yada yada. So how are we closing down the street? We're not playing in the street. They are going to play hockey on the roof of the Quick Stop, which
So
is way
dangerous.
too small. Way too small
Yeah, I was
for a
about to say,
game.
no way the roof is big enough to have all these people running around playing hockey. That's no way.
But Kevin Smith, in his master of filmmaking, cuts around it so you would have no idea. Just this awkward thing of people running and shooting and doing whatever. It goes on for a little bit. Randall's playing goal, and eventually a man shows up in a flannel downstairs wanting to buy cigarettes. It says it'll be open after the first period. He jiggles the door and waits. This, again, I think this is where you want to talk about acting range. Again, Scott Mosier. This is Snowball, who looks, I think I've always thought watching this looks completely different. Like, he actually looks in shape here. He shaved. He's got his hair's down, so he looks longer.
That's
like,
crazy. I had no idea.
I didn't know that either.
Eventually, he crawls up the fire escape. It's like, rather than be like, "What the fuck are you doing? How much longer is left in this period?" Like 7 minutes or 8 minutes. Or whatever. Like, come the fuck on! I just want to pack his cigarettes. Like, we'll be down in 8 minutes. And then he starts going, "Oh, look at you! You can't even pass." He just starts. Dante's like, "Hey, fuck you, man! Like, if you can do better, come on up here." So he comes on up there, and they get a face off together, which is completely unfair because Dante is on skates. This guy's just sitting there planted in sneakers or whatever boots.
Yeah.
So he fucking lights Dante up, knocks him down, gets the puck, and then just shoots it fucking across the street down a storm drain in an amazing goal. Then he bounces, he leaves. Dante's pissed off, of course. He's like, all right, well, let's just get another game going. All right, let's get back into it. Where's the other ball? Nobody brought another ball. They all fucking did this, and Dante's pissed about it.
Well, I brought one ball, the orange one. It's like, God damn it.
The orange one. And the orange one. And that's the end of the hockey game. Dante's pissed that that's how it went down. I'm going to drop it in here. I don't know if it's already happened, if it happens here, or if it'll happen later. But at some point, that'll be important later on. Randall sells a 4-year-old a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's during another montage, right?
I love that they go as far as to show her put one in her mouth and like try to light. I was like, wow, that's probably illegal to show on film. Real quick, the guy that, I don't know if you guys covered this, but the guy that hits the ball over that challenges them is Scott Mosier.
Yep, we covered that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at him. I mean, what a metamorphosis.
He was good looking.
Yeah, I know, right? But he looks so bad as Snowball. Anyways. Now Dante's fixing a light and an old man walks over. I like to think of him as future Jared Petty. He walks over and is like, hey, young man, can I get some help?
Jesus Christ.
Toilet paper here.
The guy that dies jacking off on the toilet.
I just meant more of like, I think this is how Jared will look as an old man. I don't mean necessarily the masturbation in a public place.
How Jared looks now.
Oh, see, that's rude. You rooted it.
Yeah, you're
He walks over.
Rooted it.
There's this exchange back and forth of like, the guy asked for this. Dante shouldn't do it, but he folds as Dante does. The guy walks back. Then he comes back to Dante and he's like, how's the toilet paper back there? Dante's, to be honest, it's a little rough. Oh, it's going to knock the hell out of my hemorrhoids. And so he convinces Dante. Of course, I would just be like, sure, buy all this stuff. But no, he convinces Dante to give him toilet paper. Then he comes back and wants the nudie magazine, convinces him to give a very specific nudie magazine. He goes all the way back there to go to the bathroom or whatever, right? Then, excuse me, Randall walks back in to give us the information that Julie Dwyer has died. Julie Dwyer is the first of the names that I think you'll need to remember for future movies. No spoilers. She died mid-backstroke in the YMCA pool. She is one of the illustrious 12 for Dante, holding a special place in his heart, in memory, I guess. And so Dante's like, well, I have to go to the wake. You have to do the store for me, or run the store for me. And Randall's like, I am not doing that. If you're going, I'm going. And Dante's like, but you hate it'll be the social gathering of the season for all our high school people. He's like, you hate people, but I love gatherings. Isn't it ironic?
like I get it.
Yeah, of course. You want to be invited, but you don't want to go, Andy, right? And so that's the thing. Like, there's this whole argument that, of course, Dante buckles on. It's like, fine. And so we cut to the car now of them driving off to the wake. we're talking about, man, dying, you know, swimming in the YMCA pool. What an embolism in the brain. What an embarrassing way to die. And Randall's like, yeah, but it's nothing like how my cousin died. And like, how he died trying to suck his own dick or whatever. And so there's this whole exchange here of like, well, you know, everybody tries it or whatever, and they blah 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 back and forth, and eventually when they talk, you know, his mom found him, you know, dick and mouth, balls resting on his chin or whatever. Or no, that's before. And so there's like a beat of silence. There's a beat of silence, and Dante's like, "Wow, he made it."
Yeah, but
found
what cost?
Balls resting on his lips, but at what a price? And then Dante does the whole, "Yeah, I can never reach." He's like, "Never reach what? Your dick?" Yeah, I guess it's like you said. Everybody's tried it. I've never tried it. Pervert. They roll up to the funeral home. They climb out of the car. They go in, and then it's a 5 minutes later sign of them running out of the funeral home, jumping back into the car and taking off, and then family members running out to chase them and throw rocks at them. It turns out as we get, sorry, Kevin.
I was just gonna say I like the way they did the audio in this scene because you hear a commotion happen.
Yeah,
and
like,
then they
it's
run
like the
out,
Wilhelm scream. That's like, wah!
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
stupid. Like things get knocked out, someone yells something, and then they all run out. It's very, again, so like, this humor coming out of nowhere. I love it.
But yeah, but again, if you had more budget, right, you'd have that scene in there. But they were like, well, we can't afford to shoot inside. We have no more film,
But
so we'll
this
just have the quick
worked, you
cutaway.
know?
That was what
definitely
the
worked.
comic was then, right? They did the Lost Scene. Wasn't that the comic book? No, am I wrong?
I don't know. The only last thing I know is the one where he actually goes to the other video store. There was supposed to be a scene there, but they lost the mag, like went back. It didn't load right. So they have the sound for it, but they don't have the visuals.
Isn't that in it?
No, he goes to it, but that scene's supposed to be longer. So he has a whole scene with the another guy at the counter and stuff like that, where they go back and forth on movies or something like that.
Yeah, this scene like surprised me because it's like, oh shit, they left the like I didn't expect them to leave. So even them just getting in the car, it was like it was a nice breaking of the pace and like just changing shit up. But I like how it didn't take too long and they get right back to the convenience.
And they're like, dude,
So
nobody wants to rent video or whatever, and they cut to all the kids like banging on the
Banging on the door.
Yeah, like zombies. It
So
was
cheesy.
I'm right, and there's more to it than that. Even there was Clerks: The Lost Scene comic book that they did that filled in a bunch of gaps, including the funeral parlor. And then it turns out that on Clerks X the DVD, they animated it in the style of Clerks the animated series.
Oh, that's cool.
The gap there too. So yeah, but like you said, they go back to the quick stop now. It's now completely dark. Dante reams Randall for all of this. All right, you're leaning on the casket, you knocked it over. Her fucking body fell out. It's not like she can break anything. He's like, it's him just screaming at him for being Randall, basically, right? Dante goes back in, and shortly thereafter, Randall re-enters and is just like, hey, let me have the keys to your car. Like, why would I give you the keys to my car or whatever? I want to go rent a movie from Big Choice Video. You understand the irony of that? You work in a video store. I work in a shitty video store. I want to go to a good video store. This then becomes the whole argument about, yes, does title dictate behavior and what their responsibilities are as clerks, right? And this might be the shit on the pot thing you were talking about earlier, Kev. So they go back and forth.
I was going to say the shit on the pot thing is later when he's trying to get him to decide to go with Caitlin.
Okay. So they go back and forth about this or whatever, as we've already discussed. And then this dude walks up and does the thing that is so annoying. I worked, fucking at a Walmart cashier, and people do this shit of like, they read the tabloid headline and they start talking to you about it, and you don't want to engage. You're engaging with your friend or whatever. Then he keeps trying to interject, at which point finally Randall spits water on him. The guy's like, I'm going to break your fucking head. Dante refunds him and does it and gets him out of the door or whatever. And the guy yells at Randall some more, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, title does not dictate behavior. I'm a clerk here at Quick Stop and RST, respectively. I shouldn't, spit in people's faces, but I do. So blah blah blah. And he's like, "Fine, here you go. Fucking take the keys of the car and go. Get the fuck out of here." Randall's like, "Peace. Can't wait to see you later," and leaves. He leaves. He goes to Big Choice. I'm putting this in here. He goes to Big Choice. He walks in. He is like this glorious scene. He drops.
It is glorious though. Like this
God.
we keep talking about this
time
capsule, but like. For us now being able to watch this, like we don't get to experience that anymore. And it's just like, it's funny because like I don't know if they meant to shoot it as if it's this like magical moment, but it does feel that way now looking at it where I'm like, that it's definitely transporting you to a different time and place.
Totally. Back at the convenience store now, the Quick Stop, Dante strains to lift a gallon of milk and give it back to a personal trainer who is none other than Rick Darris, who is a name you should keep in mind later because he's just a fucking dirtbag. But Rick Darris, it turns out, of course, is a personal trainer now and starts giving Dante shit about straining and how he shouldn't, that get him in shape. A woman walks in. he's like, what do you think? He's out of shape? And she's like, it's hard to tell from back here. He's like, I'm not out of shape. And he just keeps being a whiny little bitch about it, right?
But like, I mean, this guy's being an asshole. He's just trying to get a customer, right?
This is who Rick Derris is for sure. This is Rick Derris to a T, right?
So so I gotta remember Rick Derris.
Yeah,
I gotta remember
Julie Dwyer.
Also, this girl's sister.
You're about to get the fact that this woman's sister is Alyssa Jones. Once this information all starts getting revealed on who's who and how they know each other, Alyssa's sister's like, "You're Dante. You used to date Caitlin." And then Derris is like, "Wait, you used to date Caitlin Bree, girl?" He says something weird, like amazing body or smoking hot body or some shit like that. He's like, and Dante's like, "Yeah, you're Dante Hicks. You used to play hockey." He's like, "Yeah, how do you know all this?" And he's like, "Don't take this the wrong way, man, but I used to fuck when you were dating."
Fuck yeah.
and
I'd be like,
he's
how could I not take that the wrong way?
He's like, calm down. And then Alyssa's sister's like, you didn't know, Dante? Everybody knew, blah, blah, blah. While this is happening, a dude with a briefcase walks in and starts asking questions of like, hey, have you been working here all day? Are you the only person working here? What's your name or whatever? So there's this 2 planes of action and this heavy action scene for Clerks, where it's revealed, of course, that all this stuff with Rick, Alyssa's sister, Caitlin, Dante, this love triangle they had going on over here. And then finally Dante asks the guy, wait, what is this all about? And he hands him a ticket and he's like, you're being fined for selling tobacco to a minor. An angry mother of a 4-year-old called the bureau, who called me, and I'm here to give this to you. The fine's doubled because of the exceedingly young age of the person. and like hands this $500 ticket. Is like, there's no way to contest this. This is just law. You know what I mean? Like, I have no proof it was really you, other than you saying you were here. So fuck you. And that then sours the relationship with Rick and the sister. Rick's like, I don't want to train you. He's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, Dante, selling it's cigarettes to a kid. That's low. I didn't sell any cigarettes to any kids. And then Rick Derris, it's fucking whatever. It's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. Is like, can I give you a ride somewhere? And she's like, how about the beach? And he's, I like the way you think. And that's them into the sunset. All right. They leave and then
exit them.
They exit into their life or whatever. And literally 3 seconds later, Caitlin walks in and Dante's like, oh, whatever. And then Caitlin, we don't see her immediately, but it's just this weird thing of like, so she mentions that that's Alyssa's sister and that was Rick Derris. Like them passing or coming at it from different angles, like it would just be so weird of all these people in one sector unifying and not talking to each other. But what do I know? This must be when we cut back.
Rick Derris was laser focused, bro.
Sure, he's going to the beach now. Apparently, you know what I mean?
He's trying. Yeah, come on.
I guess this is when we cut back to the video store. We need something as an interstitial here. You know what I mean? Maybe Randall already. No, he hasn't come back. So yeah, this is what's happening because eventually the Jay will put the IE cock sign on him. But anyways, they then get to the video store where Caitlin and Dante catch up about what the fuck's actually happening, right? And it's basically that Sang proposed. She needed to think about it. He insisted she wear the ring. Her mother found out about it, put the announcement in the paper. She knew that Dante would flip his shit about it, so she's been on a train from more colleges in Pennsylvania.
I can't remember.
It's like an 8-hour
away
train
on
now.
a train, right?
Yeah, exactly. To come here and calm him down. So then it's a long drawn out conversation with a lot of dialogue going on here. But basically the idea is that they do have a spark again. They do want to see what's going on. How about a dinner and a movie date? I've seen that before. What about a walk on the boardwalk, get naked date from her? Eventually she flips it back to a movie. And her idea is that she's going to go, and they have a whole conversation about Sang and Veronica and how they feel. Maybe we should put them together or whatever. It's like, man, Dante, you suck. You know what I mean? You really fucking suck.
Yeah, what a piece of shit.
I guess also already at this point, Veronica swing by with a lasagna for Dante. That was one of the interstitials I cut out there because that'll be a part to prove she's cool. And that was when Randall was doing the slurping noise too, as all your dumb friends would do. So then, yeah, Caitlin's she is there for Dante. There is something there. They want to see what it's about. They're going to do a date tonight. She's going to go home. She's going to change. She's going to break the news to her mom that it's over with Sang. She leaves. Dante's incredibly happy. Randall returns with his porno. He walks in, the best of both worlds. He walks in.
He's so happy and excited to share this.
Yeah.
I have felt this so many times, you know?
I like his whole thing. I got it so we could watch it together. He gets there, and Dante's a smiling, grinning idiot. He's like, "What? Basically, what did I miss?" I got fined for $500. Fuck, you didn't. Shows them ticket. Why aren't you? I didn't do it. You did it. Oh my god, she was only 4 years old.
Yeah, why aren't you mad? Yeah.
Yeah, why aren't you mad? Well, because everything's coming up. Dante here. Caitlin's back. We're gonna be together. Everything's fantastic. You just missed her. She went home to do this. I need you to watch the store so I can go change to get ready for this date tonight. Randall does something to the effect of like, oh man, I thought title dictates behavior, and Dante's kind of like, nah, I'm being more like you kind of thing or whatever, right? So Dante leaves. Maybe this is where Jay puts the I eat cock sign on the window and gets Randall to come stand right by it or whatever. A classic Jay move, you know what I mean? So now Randall is in the quick stop watching the porno. Caitlin returns. They have a quick conversation there, right? Of like, yeah, this is what's going on, blah, 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 a bunch of jokes or whatever. I eat Chinese too. They're going back and forth about that stuff. There's eventually a very sweet line of, your misguided friendships of just like, if you break his heart again, I'll kill him or whatever, or kill you. If you break his heart again, I'll kill him. He was mine first, blah, 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 territoriality kind of thing. But it speaks to, and she does the whole thing of like, I think I'm going to give him a real try this time kind of thing. So it does seem like they're in different places in their lives. Of course, she's about to graduate college. So she's basically 45. So she definitely understands exactly what's going on. She needs to go to the bathroom though. So he says it's in the back, but there's no lights back there. The lights go out every night at 5:17 p.m. And the boss, the electrician owes fees to the video store. So the boss won't pay for him to come fix it. She goes back there. Dante comes in shortly thereafter, makes a joke about the porn they're watching, this, that, the other. Still very happy, Dante. And then Caitlin comes out, and she's all disheveled or whatever. And she comes out, and she's like, how did you get back here so fast? And he's like, what are you talking about? I've been gone for an hour or whatever. And she turns around so that she can't see the reactions of Dante and Randall and starts telling this, it's never been like that. He just let me do everything. And I went back there, and Dante was there, and he was ready. And he's like, no, I wasn't. And like this slow realization that it was going on. And then my favorite thing, it's such a fucked up scene,
so bizarre.
Obviously. So fucked up. But I just love the exchange of just like, call the police. Why? There's a stranger in her bathroom and he raped Caitlin. She said she did all the work. Who the fuck is in her bathroom? And they cut
it's such like a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment.
Yeah.
Like,
totally. And you want to talk about like why I got an NC-17, right? Like this is like why people were flipping out that nothing like this happened ever on the fucking silver screen. But yeah, they wheel it out. There's a guy there in the sheet right below him. It's the old man. They pull it over his head. They cut to the wide shot. He's got a giant erection. Dante and Randall are talking to the medical examiner, right, about what the fuck's going on. And like, he was back there. I placed his time of death here. Like, did he have the magazine? No, he asked me for it when he went back there. And she's like, what kind of convenience store are you running? And like, it's just so, this is a great experience.
The way they set that all up, where he was like, oh, that was, he must have come before we, played the hockey game. But after we went to the funeral, and it's so, it brings into perspective all the stupid shit they were doing.
Yeah. I do love that line of questioning. Like, well, where were you guys? Oh, we left.
What are you running here? Oh,
they put him into the ambulance, right?
Hold on, before the one line is when Randall's like, "This has got to be the most fucked up thing you've ever seen." She's like, "No, I once saw a man who broke his own neck trying to fillet himself," and they all like get uncomfortable and look away. Sorry,
so
they put him in the ambulance.
They put him in the ambulance. They put her in there too, right?
Yeah, she's already there. He's already.
Who's the other guy?
Scott Mosier.
That's Snowball.
That was Snowball.
That's Will.
He was wandering around high, saw the ambulance, decided to get it in. It's fucking hilarious, and that's the last time we see him in the movie.
They slam the doors and the ambulance rolls away, and the medical examiner is like, she's going to need years of counseling and therapy to come out of this kind of thing. We then get,
you missed the scene where Veronica and gets broken up with, right?
No, we're not there yet. This is the scene Kevin was talking about that I kept trying to put in earlier. Great job, Kevin. Randall and Dante are in the convenience store. Dante laying on like the ice cream machine. Randall's got the thing. He's like, salsa shark, sharks in the salsa, our shark. And this is where they have the conversation about, I don't want to mess up the order of things because this. And Randall's like, well, you're pining for your ex while you currently want your way. It's laying all these things out that Dante is wanting his cake and eating it too kind of situation here, and he sucks or whatever. And that, he shouldn't be depressed about this. He shouldn't have even been doing this. He should have been doubling down on Veronica, who is a good person and, deserves his love kind of thing or whatever. Then Randall leaves. Then Jay and Silent Bob come in. They're done for the night. yeah, they come in done for the night, and they have this whole conversation about it, right? And like Jay wants to party with Dante because they get off at the same time all the time. He's not in the mood, and don't want to hang out with drug dealers. No, it's this thing I'm going through with my girlfriend. And they just sharing all this information to Jay and Silent Bob, who I would not trust to sit outside my store and not fuck my life.
They see him like anytime he's working. Jay and Silent Bob are outside, so
they're for sure friends.
They've developed some sort of relationship.
I just want to go, I think, as deep as I was about to fucking leave my girlfriend for my other ex-girlfriend, and now she's catatonic from fucking a dead guy. I also skipped that line in the conversation, too, with another great one of like, oh, Caitlin will be fine. She'll get over fucking a dead guy. Hell, my mom's been fucking a dead guy for 30 years. I call him dad.
That's so funny. That's a great line of dialogue.
Yeah. So Jay leaves, and then Bob gets his line of the film, right? Of like, there's a million fine-looking women in the world, but they don't all bring you lasagna at work. Most just cheat on you. And so then he leaves, and Dante has that. He's right. I love her. Talking about Veronica. At this point,
smash cut.
We cut to the video store, which is the raccoon eyes you were talking about earlier, and the scene you were talking about here, where Randall breaks up with Veronica for Dante, saying that he's in love with Caitlin, that this, he couldn't get her out of his system, yada yada yada. And he's like, these are my words, not his, or whatever, except for the latent homosexuality thing. Where he's like just sitting there trying to get in the diagnose your friend's head case or whatever. And then there's a line that I use many times where I was like, listen, I don't know thing one about chicks. So if you have to cry or something, I can get out of here. And she's like, no, I'm not sad. I'm angry. We then cut back to the convenience store where she's screaming at Dante and, throwing stuff. He's a piece of shit. And like, to keep her on the side while trying to get back with his ex-girlfriend. He doesn't know what he wants, And if you think 37 dicks was a lot, you should see me now. I'm going to put the hookers in Times Square to shame. And he's like, no, but I love you. Or I'm sorry. Or, it's because you got caught, blah, blah, blah. I love you. And she's like, fuck you, and leaves. Randall then comes back into the convenience store and does like the hello, and then he gets the choking around him, and they start brawling through the convenience store and fucking up all the candy and throwing shit at each other, and all sorts of shenanigans. Nick, how's this fight scene sit for you?
It's not a very well choreographed fight at all, but it's worth knowing. A little piece of trivia is that the owners of the store had not come by to see what was happening. So every day they'd set up the shot, and then at like 6 o'clock in the morning they'd have to like tear all the shit down, put everything back, and then they'd have to go back to work. But this was the one day that one of the owners showed up, and she walked in, looks down, saw the whole mess and all that shit, just walked out. Another thing that we glossed over a little bit was Silent Bob's line was not originally supposed to be his. He was supposed to stay silent the entire time, but Jason Mewes couldn't do the line. He just couldn't. He kept fucking up the takes and got super nervous about it. And so finally Kevin Smith's like, I'll do the line. Don't worry about it. That's awesome. That became the hallmark of Silent Bob, like saying the moral tale, what the main character is supposed to learn.
Yeah.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So then, they get done fighting, and it's the, as you've had the row with your best friend laying there, like, how's your eye? It's okay. How's your throat? Kind of hard to swallow. And it's this, again, the whole comeuppance and layout of this thing, right? Of like, Dante once again wallowing his own shit of how horrible his life is and how none of it's his fault or whatever, and blah blah blah. And finally Randall loses it. He's like, shut the fuck up, and starts pelting with stuff and really just spells it out for him, right? Of like, this is your situation. You're here because of your actions. You've had plenty of choices. You took the ones you took, and that got you here. Like, it's a shitty job. Quit. You could go do anything else. There's a ton of other jobs. They pay better. You're just here because you're comfortable. So stop acting like the world's your fucking problems. And then Randall has a moment here of clarity too, of just like, we talk so much shit about these customers, like we're better than we're higher. We're so fucking advanced. Why are we fucking working here? And then we cut to them now having had it all out. Finishing cleaning up the store. They pick it all up or whatever. And they have that weird moment of like, all right, cool. Like, are we all right? What's going on? Kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. And there's a bit, my ride's here, but do you want to, do something tomorrow? And Dante's like, well, I'm going to, go to the hospital and see Caitlin in the morning. And then I'm going to try to run by Veronica and see if we can sort that out. And he's like, and Randall's like, do you want help with that? He's like, no, I think I got it or whatever. And it's the thing, all right, well, maybe we can do dinner. I'll call you. All right, cool. And then before Randall leaves, he's like, anything else I can do for you? He's like, yeah, Randall walk out of here one more time for me or whatever. And I was like, no. And he does the weird fucking walk that we saw.
I love it.
Just like an in-joke for them or whatever, right? And then, the door closes, and then the door opens again real quick, and Randall throws the sign at him and says, you're closed. And then Soul Asylum plays us out.
And they freeze frame in the audience.
The Randall walk thing was just something that what's the guy's name that played Randall?
Jeff O'Halloran. No.
Yeah, no.
No, it's Brian O'Halloran and Jeff. I'm gonna look. I have
Anderson, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Anyway, he tells a story on the documentary.
Jeff
He was like,
Anderson.
I thought I was done. I thought I had a night off, and I guess he had done the dance. Like he just was like, I'm so happy I get to leave, and did the dance. And Kevin's like, holy fuck, that's awesome, and then threw it in.
Nice.
He was like, that's a great thing that you can do. I didn't know you could do that.
And then at the end of the credits, it says Jay and Silent Bob will return in Dogma, which is not the next movie for you to watch and review.
Which is not, or it is?
Mallrats is next.
No, I think Mallrats is next. Yeah, I don't know why. Why would he put that in there? That's so weird.
Isn't it because Dogma is the movie he's always wanted to make? Like his literal dream movie?
I guess.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think that he was hoping that would be his next one.
Smart to follow it up with Mallrats, though.
Well, I mean,
Mallrats,
there's
a
a whole
much better
thing
film.
we'll talk about next week of how the studio system got him and was like, here's $1 bajillion. Let's make something.
Gotcha. Right. Cool. We'll talk about that next week. But this week, let's do a little ragu. Bagu?
Da 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 da.
Ragu.
Da 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 da.
Bagu.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rad Guys Talk Bad Guys, the podcast within a podcast where we rank the villains of the Askewniverse, I guess, right? This is going to be volume number 9 on my watch. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the Hispanic heartthrob, Andy Cortez.
Are we doing? Is it the dead man?
I think Dante is the bad guy.
Yeah,
I was going to
Dante's
say
probably the bad
the
guy,
producer/producer Nick Scarpino.
Hello.
Forbes 30 under 30, Tim Gettys.
I'm going to say the villain of this movie is the time itself. For all the things that did not age well.
And the glue, Kevin Coelho.
You gotta learn to look past that sort of thing.
It's a time capsule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Like, I thought there was going to be way more use of gay and stuff like that and throwing it around. And not because I think Kevin Smith was like a bigot back then, but I think, how we all talk about how language has evolved and how you would insult people, especially if you were in your 20s and making a movie in 1993, right? Like, whatever. I digress.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, who is the bad guy of Clerks, you think? I do think it's Dante.
I think it's Dante.
Yeah.
I think he's his own worst enemy. I think he's his own antagonist. And I think that at first I would say Randall is the bad guy, but he's not. He's the character that helps him sort of like have some sort of realization and growth. And so I don't think there's necessarily a bad guy per se, but I do think that this is one of those rare instances where the protagonist is actually his own worst enemy, and all the other characters around him were built to sort of take him out of those circles of hell and bring him back into like salvation. And so like I'm not, that's very metaphysical and very philosophical, but I would argue that it's Dante.
I say it's Dante as well. And I think we put him in number 1 with a bullet.
Yeah. And also ranking this universe, it's number 1 right now.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. What were you about to say, Andy?
I just agree with you guys.
Yeah. We're going to continue this
weird list.
next week. Friday, we're going to do Transformers Age of Extinction. So strap in for some Mark Wahlberg action. Is it a Transformer? We'll have to figure it out then. But then Tuesday, Mallrats will continue Kevin Smith's View Askewniverse in review. Exciting stuff.
Is that a Transformer?
Until then.
I think we found a Transformer. Watch out. Make sure it doesn't get near any high tension cable lines.
You got something for me?
No,
Anyone?
man, that's the line. That's the line.
Snoogans.
37.